Let's go to Alan Wake, the most demanding PC game of all time.
Yeah. So Remedy, who made Control, and back in the day they made Max Payne, they're known for like pushing in-game visuals. Control was one of the first major real-time ray tracing games for like the 2080 Ti. Remember when that launched?
Yeah.
You probably would have tested Control as well.
I did test Control. It's very cool.
Because that was a system killer in a way
Particle
when you maxed
effects.
everything out. Mm-hmm. So Remedy's new game, Alan Wake 2, which is out, I think, by the time this drops. So most likely by the time you're reading this, it's just out. So you're probably seeing all over Reddit saying, I can't get the game to run.
Yeah.
Because it's not even with... So the game is going to have full path tracing mode, which is like the Cyberpunk's RT Overdrive mode, and Portal with RTX with its just full path trace ray tracing. So it's going to have that mode in the game. So it's going to push the visuals. So it's going to be one of the best looking games with all of that stuff. But take ray tracing out of the mix, right? So it's like, okay, turn RT off. Now you can play this game on most PCs. Is usually how it goes. Cyberpunk actually scales pretty well. Like, it's a beast of a game with ray tracing, right? But it scales really well. You can play it on lower end GPUs, even on like high settings, because it's well optimized. Now, this is not to say that Alan Wake 2 isn't well optimized, but this is what the specs are for the minimum. So this is using the low graphics preset.
Oh my lord.
So if you played a lot of PC games, when you put things on low, they don't look that great, right?
Oh, yeah.
So low, 1080p, 30 frames per second, with so low settings, 1080p, 30 frames per second. You need DLSS or FSR2 set to quality mode, which is rendering the game at 720p or just under. And for that, you need a RTX 2060 or a Radeon RX 6600.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
For medium settings at 1080p 60, you need like a 3070 with DLSS in performance mode, which means that's rendering at like 540p. It's like rendering at basically like original Xbox.
How much is a 2060?
They're about US dollars. You can't really buy them new anymore. They're kind of secondhand. So let's just say the 3060, which is recommended as well, that's like $300 US.
Wow.
There's
a minimum of $300 card to play this game.
But the thing is, like, you can't, like, none of the recommendations, you can't actually run the game natively, is what they're saying. Like, you need DLSS or FSR upscaling, like aggressive upscaling for like balanced performance modes, upscaling just to run the game. And not only that, so there was a tweet from a Remedy developer that got deleted, right? So people were wondering about, what about older GPUs like, 10 series or the 5700, or even like, let's say you got like a 1080 Ti, right? Like a GTX 1080 Ti, a classic GPU. It's old now, so developers shouldn't necessarily have to cater for it, but there's still like a lot of 1080s and things out there. Tweet got deleted, but it still stands is that those GPUs actually aren't supported because Remedy is using a GPU with mesh shaders is required. So mesh shaders was announced like when the 20 series was revealed in DirectX 12. Basically, it's like a thing that with new GPUs where like let's say you have like a 3D object in a game and there's something behind it that's not visible by the camera. So it won't render those polygons or that mesh or whatever it is. And then, when it only renders what you're actually seeing. And like it's a smarter algorithm to increase performance and efficiency of a GPU to only render what you can see. But the only thing is that not many games like force this feature. There's some games that enable it, but it's basically something that doesn't work on older GPUs, or like older GPUs can't handle it because they don't support that technique. So not only like does this game require like insane hardware to run, but it's using that mesh shading like optimized thingo to improve efficiency in thingo as well. And on top of that, Like, so I don't like
Okay.
like it doesn't sound like the
This doesn't sound good.
that the game is kind of like ready. Like, I'm still pumped for it. Like, I loved Control and I want to see what this game can do, but like we're on like the extreme end where we can say, okay, we've got 4080s and 4090s, so we will just run the ray tracing, path tracing mode,
Yeah, of course.
and brute force it, right?
Yeah.
And we'll put DLSS on because it kind of has to, but we'll just brute force it, the shit out of it, and it'll run.
But if you don't have 4080s and 4090s, and you're a massive Alan Wake fan,
some like, you know,
you have some problems.
because like things about like PC releases not being optimized is like an issue, or has been an issue this year. So some, let's call it inside baseball. So the PC specs for Alan Wake 2 were only dropped like a week before the game's release date. So
Okay.
usually this sort of stuff comes out long before, right?
Yeah. Usually when the game
And
goes
they
gold.
Yeah, and they have since posted saying that the game's going to run okay. It's going to run well on PlayStation, and that at launch it's as good as it can be for PC, which
What does that
is
mean?
like a loaded statement, right?
Doesn't Remedy typically make games better on PC than they do console?
Yes.
They're predominantly a PC developer rather than console.
That's right. But I think that unless you have a 40 series GeForce RTX GPU,
What are they doing?
you're going to have problems.
What are they doing?
Exactly. I think if you don't have like a 4070 or higher, expect issues.
What is that? Like 3% of the people? Like
Yeah.
if you look at the Steam charts, it's like
That's right.
3 or 4% maybe. What did we say the other week?
Yeah, it's like it's a handful of percent. Like it's basically less than 10% of the. Let's say even like conservatively, like 5% of GPU owners on or Steam players will get the best out of it. But the thing is, it's not even being released on Steam. It's got an Epic Game Store exclusivity deal, which is like another, like, you know, red tick.
Yeah.
Or red cross. And also the other one is that, you know, like being in the industry is you get access to like early codes and stuff like that. I've spoken to a lot of contacts and review code. So the game's out on the 27th. We're recording this on the 24th. So if you're listening, we're recording this in the past. It's kind of how it works. But review code isn't going out to like journalists until today or tomorrow.
That's a red flag. Straight up red flag.
2 days before the game's launch.
That's not good. That means they're running to the finish line.
Like I understand that like there must be pressure to get the game out. Like the game does look good, so hopefully we're showing, or like we can, like there's like a DLSS 3 or path tracing like video for the game. Like NVIDIA, you know, NVIDIA does their GeForce trailers to show you like this is what it's running and this is how it runs with all of our tech. And the game looks nuts. And like people that have played it, like so obviously they were playing on like the best PC rigs at like, you know, Gamescom and other events. Like all said that it looks and plays amazingly. So like I have no doubt that on like a 4080 or a 4090, the game is going to look and play beautifully.
Oh, of course, because that's the only graphics cards that you can really run it on.
I have a feeling that on a 3060, which is the most popular GPU according to Steam, it's going to look and play not beautifully.
It's gonna suck. Yeah, this is a little disappointing. But yeah, I would expect more out of Remedy, to be honest. But maybe this just happens. They just had deadlines, or I don't know. Why do you think they have chosen to go about it this way?
I think because they went this cutting edge tech way. So they decided to go mesh shaders and DirectX 12, like full into like the new DirectX 12 API, and path tracing and ray tracing, and fully maxing out what they can get out of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, right? And they're not a huge development studio, so that's the route they decided to go. And those consoles, so it's not coming out on PS4 or Xbox One. It's not coming on the previous gen consoles. So those consoles are DirectX 12 based, and they've got RT hardware and I mean, they're comparable to, let's say like the 2070s of the world or things like that. So that's what they've targeted. And they haven't even considered going any less than that. So they're just pushing the visuals based on that hardware spec. And so I think the minimum PC specs that we're seeing they're seeing like being so demanding, and like how this game, like you're going to need like a really good PC just to run it, is just them not spending the time potentially needed to actually get it optimized for a wider range of GPUs and hardware.
Is that because they're concentrating on the visual fidelity of the game?
Yeah. Yes.
And that's
on console performance, probably over PC performance, outside of like the top end where they have a deal with Nvidia.
They must be pretty confident if that is their plan from the start, and there wasn't any, let's say, time constraints or like delays, that this is going to sell well.
Well,
because you wouldn't do this
yeah.
unless you were confident, right? Because you're hamstringing yourself.
Not necessarily. Because, I mean, we saw what happened with Cyberpunk and like other like Last of Us PC.
Yeah, but those games aren't Alan Wake. Like those games are huge, highly anticipated titles. Like Alan Wake, like 4 people play Alan Wake. That's why Remedy's a small studio.
Yeah, but they're still pretty popular. Like they're kind of like, well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're not like, it's not Call of Duty, right?
No,
but
it's not Cyberpunk, but it's like, but now that you've said that, it makes me think that they are very confident in that this game will sell, for them to only specifically concentrate on a certain GPU and above. Because if I was them, I would want my game to play perfectly across any platform it can, to maximize the amount of sales my game can do. Because if I'm a 3060 owner and I read this article and I'm an Alan Wake fan, I'm not even going to get the game. Why would I get the game? Like, well, I'm going to play this. I know the game is gorgeous. Reading the article.
You're going to play it like 1080p with like DLSS on performance mode.
Yeah, and throw up.
Yeah. Like, see,
you know,
like the thing is, like, if you had a Radeon card, you would say no way, because DLSS is passable at 1080p, but only in quality and depends on the game, and because it is like good tech, but it's not like something that you would choose over native at that resolution. But FSR, like AMD's tech, like that only looks good in 4K.
And what do you
like
need
when
for
you're
that?
when you're upscaling
what do you
to
need for 4K? What card do they obviously recommend like a 4080 or a 7600
yeah,
or
4080.
something like that.
Yeah, 4080. So you need like a 4080 with DLSS in performance mode to run the game in the high quality settings with ray tracing and path tracing, which is fair enough. Because that's kind of like what you'd expect.
Yeah, I either think it's two things. Either this game will look like jaw-dropping, stunning, and they know that they're going to sell enough at the higher end GPUs because of the quality game that they've made, or they are running to the finish line, which is why they haven't given out review copies to media yet. And it's just not ready. It's half baked. It's half cooked, with more concentration on consoles and higher end GPUs, leaving out, I don't know, the majority of PC gamers.
Yeah, so like they've obviously made the decision that yes, it's going to work on a 3060 and 2060, which are the two most popular GPUs on Steam. But you're going to be running at low settings at 1080p with upscaling. Yeah. So how is the game going to look at those settings? We'll find out. By the time this is live, either there's reports all over social media and community forums saying, wow, Alan Wake 2 looks amazing. Doesn't matter what hardware you've got.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
Or the opposite is going to be, boy, this game does not run well.
Yeah. Don't bother playing it until you get a 4080.
But basically the story is like based on the specs. Like this is one of the most intensive. Like they've come out and said like, hey, well, even like this the CPU wise, you need like a Ryzen 7 3700X or Intel equivalent is recommended.
That's crazy. It's crazy.